everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast presented by ObsessedWithFilm.com. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And on this week's episode, we're going to discuss the new movie The Lincoln Lawyer, starring Matthew McConaughey. And we're also going to talk about Limitless, the new film with Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro. And then Jane Eyre with Mia Wasikowska and Michael Fassbender. And then we're going to talk a little about Paul, the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost film that we sort of discussed earlier this week in an interview with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And then we're going to get into our picks of the week. John.
Lincoln Lawyer.
I was actually not disappointed with this movie as much as I was not looking forward to seeing a film with Matthew McConaughey.
That's a roundabout way of saying you liked it. But I know what you mean, because my fear about Matthew McConaughey movies is that they're going to be like Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, or those romantic comedies, or what was it? Sahara was the one where we found the...
Oh, Sahara. I love Sahara.
But just... he's just been in so many of these silly romantic comedies, and he's not really good in them. That I was thinking, I knew nothing about it. I did, as far as I knew, he defended the 16th president of the United States. He was Lincoln's lawyer. Right,
it could have been a period piece. And to think, we get a McConaughey movie that doesn't in any way focus on his abs.
Yeah. He takes his shirt off, but it's tastefully done.
You still get his ego, and not his abs.
And I didn't really know what the Lincoln part referred to until towards the end. That he's well, you should read the synopsis, and it's
sort of a metaphor in a way.
Ooh.
I'll get to it.
You're in trouble now.
In this gripping thriller, The Lincoln Lawyer, Matthew McConaughey stars as Michael Mick Haller, a slick, charismatic Los Angeles criminal defense attorney who operates out of the back of his Lincoln Continental sedan. Having spent most of his career defending petty, gutter-variety criminals, Mick unexpectedly lands the case of a lifetime, defending a rich Beverly Hills playboy, played by Ryan Felipe, who's accused of attempted murder. However, what initially appears to be a straightforward case with a big money payoff swiftly develops into a deadly match between two masters of manipulation and a crisis of conscience for Haller.
It was Masters of Manipulation, huh?
Masters of Manipulation. Directed by Brad Furman.
Ta-da!
And starring Marissa Tomei, Josh Lucas, John Leguizamo, Francis Fisher.
Who besides Marissa Tomei, don't really, they have little appearances in the movie.
Great supporting cast,
yeah,
I would say.
But a strong performance by McConaughey.
He really was good in this, and I think it's because the role sort of requires... Well, let me step back for a sec. Matthew McConaughey, to me, as an actor, has a tremendous ego. He's slick, he's kind of smarmy in a way.
Oh, yeah,
and with that, no matter what movie he's in, in my opinion, there's some sort of untrustworthiness that he has, which works, I think, for this movie because he plays a defense attorney who kind of, blurs the line. He's like a bounty hunter defense attorney. He goes wherever the money is.
It doesn't matter innocent or guilty; it's what's in it for him. And right. That's the way he handles his personal life with his ex-wife, Marissa Tomei. It's the way he handles every conversation he has. Mm-hmm. But I like him when he's sleazy like that. He does it well.
And he carries this film. Let me tell you, he is in every frame. If you're not into Matthew McConaughey, this is not your film. If you're into Matthew McConaughey, this is like party time because he commands the movie.
Yeah.
And it holds together. I mean, the plot basically is he's a defense attorney, and Ryan Felipe plays a playboy, cavalier,
rich
brat who seems soulless, and yet it works for the character. And he has employed McConaughey to defend him in this murder trial. And
was it murder or just?
It's attempted murder.
Attempted murder. Yeah.
That sort of spirals into not just one murder, but two. And Ryan Felipe's character's knowledge of the court system gets Matthew McConaughey tied up into a situation where he typically doesn't care whether his client is guilty or not. But this guy is so cold and conniving. I think what he does is the most unforgivable thing to McConaughey's character. Right. And that is he plays a player. Mm-hmm. And that's unforgivable. But it becomes deeper than that, and that he sort of is like, ultimately it is about doing the right thing. He's going to do his job. He's going to defend him because he actually has to. Right. I mean,
he gets
he's
cornered
being played
into
in
that
such
too,
a way
yeah.
that if he doesn't play this to the hilt and get Felipe off, he's in big trouble. You know,
my one complaint with this movie, I think, wasn't Ryan Felipe. I don't think he was strong enough to stand up to McConaughey.
Well, here's the thing with Ryan Felipe. My impression of him is that his career path is sort of going in the direction of like a Kevin Bacon. In other words, he's been in a ton of movies, is seemingly connected to everything, and yet still nobody. Still not exactly something that would be a recognizable leading man character. He's kind of like amorphous to the point of not really being memorable.
Well, I think it works. I think that works for Felipe. I don't know if it works for Bacon.
Maybe not, but I mean, maybe not for
mean.
Kevin Bacon, but
You know.
he just doesn't really make an impression. He's a good actor and everything,
Right.
and I loved him in what was the movie where he played Bob Balaban's manservant in the Robert Altman film, The Hunting Party, The Anniversary Party. Played the Scottish character who was actually American. And then I thought he was pretty funny in MacGruber. I guess I'm one of the few people who actually liked that film.
You are. All right. I think you are the only one. But the thing is that just for me, Felipe doesn't have that
Charisma.
weight. Well, he's very charismatic. He's very slick, and I know this guy's
I
supposed to
think
be charismatic.
he's intentionally dull.
But I don't know if it's. I think if he's intentionally dull, that didn't work for me. And if he's only dull because Felipe can't do more than one thing, then that's a problem too. Because the character in the beginning, his character in the beginning, who seduces McConaughey into defending him,
Right.
and the guy we learn he really is at the end, I didn't see that big a change. I didn't feel any kind of, I thought he smelled like a bad news from the very start.
Well, yeah,
He
there
never
were
got any better.
some red herrings that make you, automatically get the feeling that this guy is bad news.
Right, right.
Just the way he speaks of people who are apparently lesser than him.
Yeah.
His arrogance is.
But moments
crazy.
like that, when his arrogance comes through, like when he talks about gay people and calls them faggots, that should be like a thunderclap. That should be a warning. And to me, it seemed perfectly in the character I was listening to. The guy's a rich, spoiled scum. So that just, again, I needed a little more to make it a really, really good movie. I needed something at the end that made me really want him done in.
Well, you know what it is? It's an engrossing film, and it actually carries you along. There's a good sense of humor in the fact that there's a nice repartee between McConaughey and his ex-wife, played by Marissa Tomei.
Yeah.
And there's she's great.
She is. She looks
nice.
fabulous.
Yeah,
My God,
she really,
she looks
and
great.
she's one of the actresses. She really gets to play her age.
Yeah.
As to so many actresses who are cast so young. Terrificness there. John Leguizamo, great supporting performance. Also, William H. Macy as a private investigator and friend who gets the juice on Felipe.
Right.
The background information, which ends up being quite. Well, he's involved in such a way that if McConaughey doesn't prove Felipe's innocence here, McConaughey himself is going to be charged with murder. It's a really fascinating legal knot.
Yeah,
that they
very
get
well
themselves
plotted
into.
too, very well structured.
It really is some legal entanglements, and I would even venture to say that it's probably in some sense not original because these courtroom dramas have been done like just ad infinitum, on TV and whatnot. But it really plays out interestingly in the sense that the characters mean something differently when they're talking because McConaughey can't speak truthfully.
Right.
But when he says, I have no more questions, Your Honor, he actually has a ton of questions. He just has to pull back.
Right, but he's on
all
his
playing
stage
the
then.
Ironic word game.
When the Lincoln lawyer's in the courtroom, that's his stage. That's his den. He can do. That's where you really get to see a different side of him. When he's actually in the courtroom talking to jurors or doing the cross examinations or anything like that. That's where he really shines. In a whole
his
different,
charisma
whole
comes across.
other level. Yeah. You were talking about
The supporting performance.
yeah. Did you recognize the big biker dude?
No, I didn't. But that was a good piece.
Country music star Trace Atkins.
Didn't know that. But you know, there's a great supporting performance here with one of the witnesses, whose name I don't recall. But he was an inmate. He was one of the guys that was put in with when Felipe was first arrested.
The jailhouse.
Just a terrific supporting performance by an actor whose name I don't remember at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. For a lot of these people only have a couple of lines, but they deliver them well. But they deliver it also with a sense of presence. They're people coming in there they're characters. They're not just actors. I mean,
this really benefits from those supporting performances.
Yeah,
Bryan Cranston as a police officer is actually out to get McConaughey, because in the process of all of this, Felipe is trying to frame him. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's convoluted, but interesting.
And it's maybe, 5 minutes of screen time? But it works. Mm-hmm. You always, every time the camera's on him, you want to know what he's going to say next. Mm-hmm. Same with Leguizamo. He's not in it that much, but every time the camera's on him, you wonder what he's going to do, because he's as sleazy as the Lincoln lawyer.
You know, and they seem to up the ante with some new legal twist.
Yeah.
Or something from out of nowhere, and the choices these characters make, like, should have done this with the gun, should not have arrived there at this time, should have reported. You know, there's choices that they made that you could look back and say, if you didn't do that, maybe they wouldn't have a film. But It's a smart film, actually.
Without giving anything away, what do you think of the way it ultimately ends?
You mean where it could have ended with any of the 5 different endings?
That's what I was heading to. Yeah.
The descending action was a bit too long.
A little too long, and trying a little too hard to be like this big gothic, ending, where I was like, you could have ended it the scene before.
I think they're setting it up for a sequel, a franchise.
Probably.
This could come back again. If this really works for McConaughey, maybe in the way that he thought Sahara was going to work out.
Or Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, or any of the other crap. I'm just hoping it gives him finally a character that he can put his stamp on. It couldn't be done by another handsome egotist.
This is crazy. I mean, he may have his best film in years here.
No, he does.
So,
I just hope the box office pays him in kind. The people aren't burnt out by him, and that they're willing to take a look at a different kind of McConaughey who's not trying to be funny or take his shirt off.
Yeah. I guess. It's still his ego.
Yeah, we're not being surrounded by stories of him like playing the congas naked, or this crazy stunts he does while on set. Because every time he does a romantic comedy, or remember when he did the press junk for Sahara, he was living in a trailer parked outside the Four Seasons.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you're a wacky guy. We get it.
It's the Lincoln lawyer because he does his business in the backseat of this Lincoln town car, chauffeur. Which is kind of a mess, but as far as it being a metaphor, what I was saying earlier, it represents the shiftiness, sort of the traveling of his moral character. It can go both ways. They really can't pin him down. It's just a physical representation for that. And there you go.
Well, also, but, they never mention it until there's near the end of the shot of the bumper and it says Lincoln, and that's when it dawned on me. It's like, hey, that's why he's the Lincoln lawyer. He's just a guy in a rented limo. Oh, are we done with this?
Yeah. Limitless. I think we're working on the second film that we actually kind of liked.
And, kind of for the same reasons. Bradley Cooper.
Well, there is a similar sense of both of the actors are in almost every frame of the film, except for a scene that takes place with Abby Cornish in the park where she's attacked.
Yeah. He's on the phone.
Yeah. Well, he is on the phone with her. That's right. But both films, The Lincoln Lawyer and Limitless, have a certain sense of velocity.
Yeah.
They move very quickly. There's lots of red herrings. It's a mystery. They're both trying to be framed, the main characters, for a murder. I really enjoyed Limitless. Really did. What do you think?
You should read the synopsis. That's what I think.
Just wanted to, get a pre-synopsis opinion.
I was really entertained. I like the pacing of it. I thought Cooper was great. You don't need to drag De Niro into this because he could have been played by anybody. My problem is that the director, who's the director of this thing?
Neil Berger. He made The Illusionist.
Right. He puts his hands on it too much. Every time the guy takes this mystery drug, he's supposed to, the world changes for him.
Synapses fire.
Yeah, but there's the visual representation of that, to me, got a little annoying.
Oh, I thought it was cool.
Really?
Yeah, we'll discuss. Summary. Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro star in Limitless, a paranoid-fueled action thriller about an unsuccessful writer whose life is transformed by a top-secret smart drug that allows him to use 100% of his brain and become a perfect vision of himself. His enhanced abilities soon attract shadowy forces that threaten his new life in this darkly comic and provocative film. Of course, written by the PR people.
Yeah.
Aspiring author Eddie Mora, played by Mr. Cooper, is suffering from chronic writer's block. But his new life changes instantly when an old friend introduces him to NZT, a revolutionary new pharmaceutical that allows him to tap his full potential. With every synapse crackling, Eddie can recall everything he's ever read, seen, or heard, learn any language in a day, comprehend complex equations, and beguile anyone he meets as long as he keeps taking the untested drug. Soon Eddie takes Wall Street by storm, parlaying a small stake into millions. His accomplishments catch the eye of mega mogul Carl Van Loon, played by De Niro. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss character. But they also bring Eddie to the attention of people willing to do anything to get their hands on his secret stash of NZT. With his life in jeopardy and the drug's brutal side effects taking their toll, Eddie dodges mysterious stalkers, a vicious gangster, and an intense police investigation as he attempts to hang on to his dwindling supply long enough to outwit his enemies. Yay.
We were talking about the visual style that Berger?
Neil Berger, yes.
Neil Berger brings to the film. And like I was saying, part of it works for me. But then I just think it gets too much. It just gets too much. When I want to see when a new character takes it, that we should see what happens to them, but when he's typing and the letters are falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's like,
that's very representational of ascension into knowledge in film. They did it in A Beautiful Mind. I think they did it in the Bee Season. What was that? Juliette Binoche, Richard Gere film, the spelling bee thing. They did it. You sort of visualize the words, the spellings, the equations.
Right.
In this case, the letters. Yes, but I want to say that one of the coolest elements of this film is once the pill is first taken by someone, mostly by Bradley Cooper in the film, the visual representation with that is really cool because the way Berger sets it up is once the pill is ingested, the colors in the frame become more bright, and it is as if somebody's mind is zooming in on something, or many things, one after the other, representing, knowledge.
He looks in the eye, he looks in the handbook, and he builds a story from what.
Yeah, it has a very sort of, there's like a motion orientation to it. And the way they do it in the film is like in regular film, you would track into something. But here they have this sort of special effect where they're both tracking in down the sidewalk, but also zooming into it at the same time. So you're like going into these images, and you zoom into the image, and then it's the next phase, and then it's the next phase, and it's like a warping of the film, and it's actually really cool, and it sort of creates this disorientation where you're zooming into the knowledge, and then the character, they do a sort of like where the character steps outside themselves and they see themselves. There's that extrasensory sort of perception where they're outside themselves, and I think it's really slickly portrayed. Those are some really cool moments.
I agree. I think at first it's cool, and I think it's really slick, but I just think he uses it too much. It was pulling me out of the action.
I like to think of it as like a mind warp.
It was.
Which is really
like
weird.
The Star Trek ship?
In a way. It's like a point of view.
I'm sorry, you mean the Star Wars ship.
Where Star Wars, where their minds are basically like going warp 9.
Okay. Good, but through all the special effects, you've got Bradley Cooper giving a really good performance.
Yeah, he was good.
And he cleans up well. I'm a little. When he's an author, he's like a step above homeless because he's I never really bought the idea that he was a struggling writer. I just thought he was a drunkard.
He's like your, typical bohemian failure, living in Chinatown, and can't seem to get the first chapter of his book done. And after taking the drug, which he has this just chance meeting with his
ex-brother-in-law,
girlfriend's, ex-husband, wherein for whatever reason he decides to offer him this drug. I think at the time just to get him out of like a writer's block.
Right.
But he was initially, I think, sold on the idea that each pill is like $800, so you better give it a try. It might be worth it.
Right.
So he takes the pill, and then a day or two he has finished his novel and handed it in to his publisher, who was like, incredibly surprised.
Plus cleaned his apartment. Slept with his landlord's wife.
Then an incredible scene where they meet in the hallway and she berates him and he turns it into somehow helping her with a law exam, and then it goes to the next step.
Right, and I think that's a really clever use of the director showing us how the drug works, because he remembers seeing this book on a coffee table of a girl he was trying to go to bed with when he was in college.
Right.
And just looking at it, just that. So it's not only it's total recall of everything he's ever seen or heard, so he can use that knowledge to, talk her out of her pants.
I started thinking what the drug leads to is making more money, having more sex, writing more books.
What's wrong with that? That's like every author, every writer, every reviewer's dream.
The thing with this pill is that it becomes, I guess it lasts maybe 24 hours.
Yeah.
It becomes exceptionally addictive, but it doesn't actually give the person wisdom. They become like terribly shallow and distant because they think that they're so above everybody. He parlays a small stash of money that he borrows from the Russians into a ton of money in the stock market,
right?
Which is inevitably a bad thing, because this $100,000 that he borrowed turns into a situation where he's so public in the making of this money, a couple $1 million, that the Russians are trying to figure out what's going on here,
right?
And it sort of becomes a harrowing situation where, in his stupid state, he lets one of the Russians get to him,
right?
So,
and they also have one of the, I guess you'd call it a side effect of the drug, is that, if it was just him taking the pill and he has money, sex, and can write, fine, but the pill needs more. It's not enough to do.
Right. It's in a
because he becomes so intelligent that that's not enough. You need to do more with your.
And it's being illegally produced, so you don't know that there's been different batches of it. There's his batch. There's an earlier batch, without giving anything away, that has some very adverse side effects to the people who took the drug before, and they inevitably, I think, become lesser versions of themselves.
Right, and it's nice the way these people pop into each other's life, because who else is taking it.
Yeah, you see, eventually,
by how their life.
You don't see it at the beginning, but you see how it's all interconnected.
Right.
So pay attention to the first half hour of the movie. It has some good clues.
Anyone whose life changes drastically is, in a good way, is susceptible, or they're at the height and they start to fall apart. The people who are on the drug know. It's an alcoholic would know if it's alcohol. A heroin addict would know if it's heroin or drugs.
It's like that.
Yeah,
they do sort of make an allusion to it.
I know what you're on. I know what you're doing. You got any left?
The book that it was based on was called, I wrote it down, The Dark Fields by Alan Glynn. And Leslie Dixon, she wrote the screenplay based on the book, and she also wrote Pay It Forward, and Mrs. Doubtfire, Thomas Crown Affair. So in the Thomas Crown Affair, she certainly has a experience in portraying people who are able to express an exceptional smartness or knowledge or cavalierness. And here, it seems like one of the aspects of taking this drug is people become incredibly proficient. They're not just smart, but it also goes hand in hand with doing.
Right.
So not just sitting back and being intelligent, but there's all of a sudden this clear-headed desire to achieve, which is where because he's making so much money and thinking so clearly, Robert De Niro becomes involved as this CEO who's trying to put together this mega merger, and he uses Bradley Cooper's ability to get this information. Inevitably, he ends up firing some of his team and just using Bradley Cooper. But then you can only hold on to the charade for so long before things implode.
Right. Now, what did you think about having De Niro in this movie? Is it just stunt casting?
Well, he's very much. I know he's got top billing, but he's really and Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
So he's only in the movie
but
for maybe 20 minutes.
Anybody.
Could have been.
You know, he doesn't really bring much. I don't want to cut the guy some slack. He's not the Robert De Niro raging bull anymore. I
Right.
understand that, but what does De Niro bring to this that any number of it doesn't?
Well, you see him on screen, and he brings the weight of the importance of his background, his experience. We automatically think this guy's knowledge is accumulated through his specified knowledge. Is accumulated through 40 years of experience. Working in the financial industry. What he brings is the wisdom that Bradley Cooper's character doesn't have.
That's what the character has, but I don't know what De Niro brings. That it could have been done by, any one of a dozen other guys you can name off that I can't name now because I'm trying to think.
Well, it's a name that gets you into theaters,
it used to.
And it's a paying check. Yeah.
I didn't go see
paying check.
It's a check. But when I saw him in Machete, I was like, look, he's having fun with this. Machete was something I liked De Niro in that.
I think,
this is just
but he's also he becomes menacing. He becomes somebody you don't want to mess with. So then, when there's a ultimate confrontation between the two, when De Niro puts on his gangster mode, you usually don't top it.
Yeah,
he's usually the most intimidating presence. He's going to get you. If not through action, through wordplay.
Right.
So there's a couple of good scenes with Cooper and De Niro in that sense.
And I didn't feel that. I just thought it was kind of like distracting that it's.
So you say that this is passable and fun, but not
the movie or just
the movie?
No, I had a good time. It's not something I rush out to see again. But I was just. Bradley Cooper was kind of thrown at us because The Hangover was such a great success, and then
I'll always think of him as the guy from Wet Hot American Summer.
Right.
And I'm going to say that about Joe Latruglio and when we discuss Paul. It all comes back to Wet Hot American Summer.
I guess it does for you.
Yes, it
does. That and Star Wars. Did they come out at the same year? Was that just your formative year for you?
Yeah, right. 2001. Yeah. Wet Hot American Summer.
But anyway, with Cooper, it's just, after The Hangover was such a hit, and then the next thing was All About Steve, which was awful. Mm-hmm. But, that had been sitting on the shelf for a long time. So it's good to see him do something that's not The Hangover 2.
Which is coming.
Yeah. Or not something that, they found on the shelf and they're trying to dust off and sell because he's a hit. He's a star now. It was a nice.
Yeah, this is he executive produced this, and I think this is actually if this does have the financial success that seems like it should get in a way. I mean, it's a fine film. Mm-hmm. Then maybe this is his first successful piece after
his first dramatic
the Hangover.
It's the first movie
God knows he's had some chances that have failed.
Yeah.
A-Team, All About Steve.
What do you mean A-Team?
Failure. Right? Personally, what I think they should do with this is they set it up for a sequel. They should do one called
F-Team.
Limited. The drug with the reverse effect.
Sell it, right? You heard it here first. Copyright.
The other interesting thing about this is the fact that the drug eliminates writer's block.
Yeah.
That would be great.
It would. All right, let's leave
Jane Eyre, man.
All right.
I don't know if I'm agreeing with these glowingly positive reviews that have come out for Jane Eyre.
Is this the first film version of Jane Eyre you've ever seen?
Yes.
Because I guess there are like 25 or 26 of them.
Maybe on home video from the BBC.
No, for me, this is the first time I've seen it on film. And then it inspired me. That and Meg Quinn, one of our fellow reviewers, gave me so much shit for not having read the book that I picked up the book after seeing the movie.
You read the whole book?
I'm just about done with it.
Wow.
It's a good book.
I should have you read this summary. This is
no. I'm not reading
it. Okay, I'm going to do this.
I've never read that much in my life.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
One take.
I'm going to get it. Oh, yeah, right. Right.
Should I go get coffee?
Here I go. You go do something else. I'm going to stumble through this. Okay. In a bold new feature version of Jane Eyre, director Cary Fukunaga and screenwriter Mayra Buffini infuse a contemporary immediacy into Charlotte Bronte's. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Bronte's?
Yeah, Bronte.
Timeless classic story. Mia Wasikowska and Michael Fassbender star in the iconic lead roles of the romantic drama, the heroine of which continues to inspire new generations of devoted readers and viewers. In the 19th century story, Jane Eyre, played by Miss Wasikowska, suddenly flees Thornfield Hall, the vast and isolated estate where she works as a governess for Adele, a child under the custody of Thornfield's brooding master, Edward Rochester, played by Mr. Fassbender. The imposing residence and Rochester's own imposing nature have sorely tested her resilience. With nowhere else to go, she is extended a helping hand by clergyman St. John Rivers, played by Jamie Bell, and his family. As she recuperates in the Rivers' Moore house, and looks back upon the tumultuous events that led to her escape, Jane wonders if the past is truly ever over. Jane wonders if the past is truly ever past. I'm going to keep on going. Aged 10, the orphan Jane, played by Amelia Clarkson, is mistreated and then cast out of her childhood home, Gatested, by her cruel aunt, Miss Reed, played by Sally Hawkins. Consigned to the charity school Lowood, Jane encounters further harsh treatment, but receives an education and meets Helena Burns, played by Freya Parks, a poor child who impresses Jane as a soulful and contented person. The two become firm friends. When Helen falls fatally ill, the loss devastates Jane, yet strengthens her resolve to stand up for herself and make the just choices in life. As a teenager, Jane arrives at Thornfield. She is treated with kindness and respect by housekeeper Miss Fairfax, played by Judi Dench. Jane's interest is piqued by Rochester, who engages her in games of wit and storytelling, and divulges to her some of his innermost thoughts. But his dark moods are troubling to Jane, as are the strange goings-on in the house, especially the off-limits attic. She dares to intuit a deep connection with Rochester, and she is not wrong. But once she uncovers the terrible secret that he had hoped to hide from her forever, she flees, finding a home with the Rivers family. But once St. James Rivers makes Jane a surprising proposal, she realizes that she must return to Thornfield to secure her own future, and finally to conquer what haunts both her and Rochester. Good Lord.
Do we have anything left to say? Is there anything we can add to that?
I'm going to cut that down.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut that down. But at least I got it all on tape.
That's true.
That is a fucking edit, if there ever was one.
So, it's amazing they boiled that all down to a 2-hour movie.
They seem to have done it, and Cary Fukunaga did it with a certain... there's a bleakness that goes with it. There's a mood that carries through this whole film. There's certainly the production design and the ambiance of it is something that can really hold you. And I think that's what some of the critics are really attached to, is the fact that they've seemed to have captured the bleakness of the period.
I think he did it in a very naturalistic way, though. A lot of scenes shot by candlelight. A lot of the rooms look like they're dusty. Mm-hmm. It's not, and from I've seen 2 other versions since I've seen this one. I'm hooked on Jane Eyre, I guess. And there's a version with Orson Welles, and every scene is just played like it's an opera.
How much time have you spent
on Jane Eyre?
Yeah, on Jane Eyre.
Since since I've seen this movie?
Yeah.
I don't know. 2-3 days, 24-hour days.
And Mia Wasikowska, she's really terrific in the role.
Yeah.
She's captivated.
So different than when we've seen her in Alice in Wonderland or The Kids Who Are Right.
Yeah.
Completely a complete transformation. My stumbling block with this is I felt there was no chemistry between her and Rochester.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't think that
I don't think he was a good Rochester
he wasn't,
at all.
I guess I can see what you mean there. He was very cold, aloof, and inaccessible. And it just doesn't seem that,
which is how he's supposed to be in the beginning, I guess, but...
How did she warm up to him? I mean, do you really see that in the film?
No.
She's very staid and proper, despite all the things that happen to her. She's sort of a woman without a home.
Well, I think it's that, he doesn't treat her well, but compared to the way she's been treated by everyone else, it's like he's treating her like a queen. He doesn't beat her, he doesn't belittle her too much. He kind of gets her to answer questions. He asks for her opinion about stuff. But it's always a master-servant relationship. And they, for the love story to work, there has to be some leap there. And I just didn't feel it in the movie. It was suddenly they were in love. I was like, oh, really? When did this happen?
I got to tell you, some of the people at this press screening were crying.
I was not.
I mean, I wasn't taken that much aback by it. I guess maybe people had been so familiar with the story that, they brought with them the backstory. But seeing it for the first time, I really appreciate it for its creativity, and it's a terrifically well-photographed film, and the performances are great. Everybody is, of course, very photogenic. And the movie has I guess I can't, in the barest sense, say that I was bored with it at all. It moves along pretty well. But
you didn't cry, Steve.
No, I described it earlier as sort of being a little morose and moribund.
Yeah.
That's not to say that it drops dead. It has a vibrancy to it.
Right.
She has this sort of innate survivability that makes you root for her. And I don't know, I didn't see Rochester as being like her savior, and I don't think she saw him as being that way either.
Right.
But it works. It still works.
It was a little too proper for me, a little too costume drama. The thing is, when people put on clothes like that, when women strap on corsets and guys put on top hats, they really need to give a performance that makes me forget that they're in corsets and top hats. They need to be real to me. But you know what it is? Sometimes I watch like Merchant Ivory films and all I see are the costumes.
Maybe you're seeing the same ones.
Yeah, that could be. It could be. But you remember there was a movie called Wings of the Dove? It was Helena Bonham Carter, and all I remember from that movie is she wore the biggest hat I've ever seen in that movie.
Can see the hat right now.
It goes from end to end of the screen. That's all I remember from the movie. And anytime your costume is out acting you, there's a problem. It doesn't get that bad in this, but there are just moments where you feel it's a little too staid, a little too proper. Oh, it's an 18th century novel. I understand that. I don't need it modernized, but I need it made to come alive. And I look at Judi Dench, who plays the housekeeper.
Not a huge part.
No, but my God, does she feel real in everything she does? The camera looks at her and she just kind of gives a smile, and you're like, oh. It suddenly, 10 minutes of plot shifts
an
into
immediate
here.
acceptance, sort of like De Niro.
You're not tricking me into saying that.
Well, I recommend it.
Yeah.
I do. It's a good film. And listen to the interview we did with Kerry Fukunaga and Mia Wasikowska, published it a couple of days ago. Some interesting insights.
Do you think this is a good date movie?
Yeah, I think so.
Taking a bullet, though? I mean,
if you're trying to corner me, I would say I'm not looking forward to seeing it again.
Right.
But it's still, it's a fine film.
Yeah. It's very proper and well made. But it didn't have a lot of passion in it. And that's something that, the book is more passionate. The book has the problems, too, where they'll, describe something for 18 pages. It's a 3-second shot on the movie.
In doing the interview
Yes.
with Mia, I think the story that I take from that as being the best is the fact that the costume department sewed a pocket into her dress so that she could keep her camera there, to take photos, behind the scenes stuff of the cast. Things from her perspective. And so now when I see the film or any photographs, I'm immediately thinking, she's got a digital camera on the inside of it. Something.
When they came to town, they did a Q&A after screening, and she took pictures of the audience.
Yeah.
So, it's nice.
For the Wasikowska scrapbook.
Yeah, I want to know she's wearing sneakers, too, or a thong. Something crazy that makes it real. The fact that she has a camera in her.
She's the camera loves her.
Yeah.
She has a certain sense of fun. So she's got a future.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing a lot more of her. And I'll be seeing a lot more of Paul, because It was. I love this movie,
can we
man.
Steve looks so happy right now.
Yeah, you know, it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
This is like nerd porn, isn't it?
It is nerd porn.
And you know what?
Hysterical.
That's fine, because they know it's nerd porn. They didn't make it for anyone else but people who like nerd porn like this. And I enjoyed it. I had a blast.
Yeah, it's a celebration of geek culture.
Yeah, and a glorious one. I mean, it doesn't belittle it. It's but it also, it's more than that. You know, it's a good story, good characters. The best Seth Rogen performance I've seen in a long time. Oh, so much better than
The New York
Pineapple
Times was saying that Seth was overexposed, and so when you hear his voice coming out of this alien, it's like you don't believe it.
It was so much better than Green
that.
Hornet or Pineapple Express, or maybe it's just I don't have to see that voice.
I don't agree with that, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have a synopsis?
I do. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost reunite for the comedy adventure Paul as two sci-fi geeks whose pilgrimage takes them to America's UFO heartland. While there, they accidentally meet an alien who brings them on an insane road trip that alters their universe forever. For the past 60 years, an alien named Paul, voiced by Seth Rogen, has been hanging out at a top-secret military base. For reasons unknown, the space-traveling smartass decides to escape the compound and hop the first vehicle out of town, which happens to be a rented RV containing Earthlings Graham Willie, Simon Pegg, and Clive Collins, Nick Frost. Chased by federal agents and the fanatical father of a young woman that they accidentally kidnap, Graham and Clive hatch a bumbling escape plan to return Paul to his mothership. And as the two nerds struggle to help, one little green man might just take his fellow outcasts from misfits to intergalactic heroes.
Okay.
You know.
What do you like most about this movie?
Well, that's hard to say. Immediately, that's hard to say because I like so many things about it. I think it's a fun road trip. It's a road trip. And I liked the repartee between Pegg and Frost is just hysterical.
It's always joyful. And I mean this in the best way. It reminded me of Hope and Crosby.
They kind of have that going.
Because they both have that history off-screen with each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's an ease to their presence. They joke around. Frost and
Simon Pegg.
Thank you. Frost and Pegg have can pull off dramatic moments. There aren't that many, but they can pull them off. Mm-hmm. But I really think that there's just that you could put these two guys. So far they've battled zombies. They've been police detectives, and now they're sci-fi geeks on a road trip.
They're spaced everywhere.
Right. But there's just that repartee between the two of them. It's so casual and so audience friendly.
They have a certain, innocence.
Yeah.
And in a sense, the way this movie plays out is that they're going from UFO spot to UFO spot in their rented RV, and they themselves are like aliens, being Brits, trying to experience America. Mm-hmm. And they go to some pretty cool, places. Area 51. One of the diners around there that's totally devoted to all the UFO eccentricities things, where Jane Lynch has a cameo. Which is pretty funny. I think they went down to
Roswell.
Roswell.
Roscoe.
They went to.
That's where the black mailbox is, I guess. Whatever that is, that's too geeky for me to know.
Yeah, and then Devil's Tower, which was neat to see. All the Close Encounters references, and this movie is very heavily referential to Spielberg, who actually makes a cameo, be a voice in the film. Amusingly so.
Yeah.
And Kirsten Wiig, who plays the daughter of a religious fanatic. Well, maybe this sums it up. Her T-shirt is a image of Jesus with a machine gun killing Darwin.
Yeah.
She also is, for some reason, one-eyed.
Right. She has some kind of childhood disease.
And strangely enough, one of Paul's abilities, Paul's like this green, he's top heavy, large head.
Right.
He has an ability to heal. Mm-hmm. This Christ-like ability to.
But he also passes on knowledge.
But he can only do that. He can only use this ability to his own harm. Right. He has to. He assumes the pain and the affliction of the other person in order to heal that other person. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of scenes that play out where she's healed, and in the result of doing this, it's not a spoiler, you get a vision of what his world was like. And so there's like this ultimate knowledge of the universe or the future or something like that. In a way, he's like his hand is the Limitless NZT pill.
Right.
So Kirsten Wake's character is no longer the religious fanatic. She's been opened to this whole new world wherein she wants to see and do, and especially say things she's never said before.
Right.
So the things that fall from her mouth are pretty damn funny.
And there's a point when we interviewed Frost and Peg where they were talking about, they'd been staring at the monitors very seriously, wondering, whatever phrase she'd come up with was funnier, because she doesn't know how to swear. She knows what swear words are, but she doesn't know how to swear, so she puts them together randomly. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And then she wants to kiss. She wants to be kissed. She wants to fornicate.
And who wouldn't turn that down?
Right, exactly. But she's very funny.
So Simon Pegg's Graham is immediately attracted to her. So there's sort of the mini subplot relationship between those two, and his caring for her because she's somewhat wayward now.
Yeah.
Because she has this whole new vision for life, and so she, in a way, is like an alien in this mental universe. Paul is the alien trying to connect with the ship that's going to be landing in New Mexico.
Right.
They're being chased by Bill Hader and Jolo Truglio as the federal marshals that are trying to
led by
Jason Bateman,
who plays Zoyle. Which
Zoyle? What?
Yeah, it was Wait a
his
second. Name's Agent Zoyle, and they like, oh, what's your first name? And he says Lorenzo, and they go,
oh, right,
Lorenzo Zoyle.
Right. There is the pop culture
groaner. It's just a groaner. Yeah,
good.
Because Zoyle sounds like such a stupid name, and they do it through the whole. I love this. They do it through the whole movie. And that's two guys who don't care if you think it's funny; they think it's funny.
You know why this movie really works all the way through? And we're talking about Peg and Frost being very entertaining, playing off each other. Whether it be being chased by zombies or fighting the town in Hot Fuzz, and then in this movie, against the being with Paul and then the FBI agents, their sense of wonder, the way they react to all things that happen, they have such expression and like a fanboy glee that it's infectious. And in a way, that's kind of like what Spielberg casts on when they cast Jurassic Park, because these kids are so good at reacting a certain way, or Richard Dreyfuss, the way he looks at the mothership in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or Roy Scheider in Jaws, how he reacts to the reactions. And Peg and Frost are terrific at it, and we immediately warm to them because we feel like, wow, we are the geeks anyway. We experience what they've done. Although I've never been to Comic-Con, I can understand they're wanting to go there and just, geek out and have fun with it. And that's this movie. You basically geek out.
And they're also experts at not reacting to things. I think of there's a scene in Shaun of the Dead where Simon Pegg wakes up and he's a little hungover, so he goes across the street to get a soda at the convenience store.
So they're like zombies.
Yeah,
in their own
he
world.
slips on blood. He doesn't know what it is. There's zombies in the background. He doesn't know it. There's no registered
low conscious lifestyle.
They're just, and it's part of because their characters are so wrapped up in their own little world that they.
But in a way, they're sort of content with it. They don't have the problems of the outside world. And the outside world comes looking for them.
Yeah, and that's where the comedy a lot of times comes through. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's part of the charm that they have is that they're so blissfully unaware.
This is
because their world is just far more interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie's loaded with charm.
Yeah.
It is just so damn fun, man. Go see it. Again. Hey, picks of the week.
You're not going to be able to top this one.
I don't think I can. Go for it.
This is the one.
John exhales.
This is Sugar Box, BOXX. It's a. I just love. If you look at the DVD cover across the top, it says "Prisoners, Hookers, Machetes, Revenge." How could you not want to see this movie? It's a women in prison movie, directed by Cody Jarrett. It's how like when Tarantino and Rodriguez did their Grindhouse.
Yeah.
It's a celebration at Grindhouse and all this stuff. okay, fine, they did a good job, but it was more about what they remembered. It was more about them bringing you to Grindhouse. This is an actual Grindhouse movie made in 2010. Yep, Genevieve Anderson plays Valerie March. She's a newspaper reporter who goes undercover at a women's prison to find out, to uncover all the evil that's there. She finds out that some of the women are get better treatment if they agree to be hookers for the female warden.
I like the tagline.
Yeah, don't you? It's hard on the inside. So she's on the cover. She decides to be a hooker. They bring all these businessmen in, and she gets the story, blows the cover, blows the case wide open. It's violent. It's nudity. It's a decent story. It's
got all the exploitation you can want, I assume.
Right, yeah. And it's shot like it should be played in a drive-in. It's not art by any sense of the word, but this guy, Cody Jarrett, and in the extras, he tells you, he goes, I wanted to make the movie I could have seen at the drive-in when I was a kid. If this movie played in the 70s on 42nd Street, it would have fit right in.
This deserves the classic 70s coming soon theme.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Which I will insert right here.
Oh, yeah. It was a treat.
Cool. I've never heard of it before.
No, I don't think many people have. I know it was direct to DVD. It also it features Tora Satana, who was the lead chick in The Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. It's got the guy who directed all those great Pam Grier movies, Foxy Brown and Coffee. He's in it. A lot of the inventors of exploitation, the people who actually made those movies, have guest shots, and I wouldn't recognize any of this if I watched the extras and they talk about what making a movie like this, making another women in prison film. So yeah, it's I wouldn't rent it on the night you're babysitting the kids, but well, maybe I would have, because I don't like
this. This is the complete opposite, man.
Yeah.
I'm going in the complete Saturday morning direction.
Wait, you could watch this on a Saturday morning.
But you could.
All right, what do you got?
But not on network TV.
No.
This I used to watch, jeez, man, I don't know, 18 years ago, almost 20 years ago, something like that. Reboot. I mean, this at the time, in the early 90s, was cutting-edge computer animation, and now it's like probably an animatic.
Okay.
Like if you're putting together a feature film or storyboarding something. Reboot. It's basically, it's the animation that was actually really, fascinating.
Right.
The show, where they took it. Anyway, it just came out from Shout Factory seasons 1 and 2. I highly recommend it.
Oh, it's fun. Have you ever seen Batman the Brave and the Bold?
Yeah.
Okay, so they just put out the second box of the second set of season 1, and I like it. It's very colorful. It crosses that line between Batman when he's the uber serious, one of today, and the campy TV show. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of serious. And Dietrich Bader, yeah. Dietrich Bader gives the voice of Batman, does a great job. But the only reason I mention it is there's one episode that's a musical. It's a big Broadway musical, and it's got Neil Patrick Harris as Batman's archenemy, the music maestro.
Really?
And it's a half-hour Broadway musical. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Great music. I just had a blast watching. The same kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's a cartoon, but it's just...
They used to have Batman the Brave and the Bold on Comcast On Demand, so I did watch some episodes that way.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's fun.
So I think we're done. So hey, check us out online. All of our episodes are on post-movie.net, and we're on Facebook. Just type in post-movie and we should come up. And we're also on iTunes, and any reviews you can leave there would be fantastic. We would completely be grateful and incredibly appreciative. And if you have any questions, if you just want to talk movies, send us an email. We're at contact@post-movie.net. And don't forget to check out obsessedwithfilm.com. Lots of great stuff up there, updated multiple times daily. So until next week, this is the Post Movie Podcast presented by obsessedwithfilm.com. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everyone.